Welcome to a Brief History of Conspiracy.
This week, censorship.
If you are new to our channel, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit that little bell notification thing. It really does help us out. You may notice we're doing this a little differently this week. We're having to do it through a Skype call because of a little pandemic, but hey, we'll get on with it and do our best. I'm banned on Facebook again. I don't know what I keep doing wrong. We were sharing our last Corona video, and that got us banned. And then I think I've been talking a lot with people that are very maybe much coronavirus deniers, and I've made a few comments, and that might have got me banned again.
Right.
So,
Okay.
First point with censorship on YouTube and Facebook and all these things. The community settings on Facebook, or the community guidelines, I've read them. They're really, really vague. I mean, do you think that's on purpose?
Yeah, it's just difficult to police, isn't it? It's difficult to police everything that everybody says in Western democracies where we've got free speech.
Yeah, but then I go through the community settings. They tell you, right, you're not allowed to share anything for a week, and I'm like, okay, fine. Why? I don't know. So I appeal. Nothing happens
because they said so.
Because they said so.
When most of your major companies that deal with data, like Facebook, Google, Microsoft, are in bed with Amazon, they're in bed with the governments around the world as well, willingly providing them with anything they want.
Yeah, exactly. So right now we're obviously in a national emergency, and that's being used, I think, as a decent excuse on why there's so much censorship going on. I like YouTube's their excuse at the moment actually is that we haven't got enough people, so we're having to let the algorithms decide who's going to get their videos took down. So if a few videos get took down that's maybe should be allowed, then we're sorry, but there aren't actually people physically checking the videos. That seems like a bit of crap excuse to censor people's opinions. And is there ever a good reason to censor people's opinions, or does free speech trump everything?
I'd like to. I suppose you've got to believe that free speech trumps everything, really. If somebody gets offended by something, then you've been offended. Well done. Grow up, get over it, move on.
Move on, yeah.
It's not really. Yeah.
How about we're talking about bullying or hate speech and things? So does that, if I start using language and start calling you every name under the sun across social media, should that just be acceptable? Should just go, well, there's a block function. So
well, yeah, there is. That's a good comment. Yeah. What else can you do? If you're that annoyed with somebody and you don't really want them speaking to you, you just block them. And
yeah, well, exactly. But we seem to have laws in place for this. I always wonder if it's a little bit like we have to have speed limit laws, because there are people that think they're Nigel Mansell and can drive at 100 miles an hour and have and be absolutely fine. But unfortunately, we have to have laws against these morons, because not all of them are Nigel Mansell. So is this? I always wonder if this is a similar thing to that. We have to have censorship laws because of the morons that can't show a bit of respect.
Well, that's why most laws come into place anyway. It's because some moron did something, and now they've got to legislate to try and stop another moron doing it. Generally, that's why laws are written. If people just had common sense from back in the old days, we wouldn't need all these laws. But
for me, that doesn't really track for why Facebook or YouTube are cracking down and deleting so many videos. I mean, there's a big thing about the recent David Icke video that's been took down, and the official reason by YouTube was that it's because he's a coronavirus denier. So what if he is? If he denies the existence, or he talks about this, somebody else will do another video debunking it and saying why it is and why he's wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So
I think you've got I suppose live and let live in a society, really. People should be educated well enough that if somebody is spouting absolute rubbish, nonsense, then they know better than to believe it.
Yeah, that's not always the case, though, is it? because
It's
people
not.
are still all over Facebook, spouting everything he said and repeating it like
True.
it's gospel. And even when they're then presented with the information, they refuse to believe it because it went with what
Yeah,
they think. You know?
I suppose people are easily led, and it goes back to that point about people individually are intelligent, but as a group they're quite dumb. And I think social media in times of crisis probably that plays out quite a lot, doesn't it, on social media? People posting random pictures of the army supposedly ready to lock down London, when it's not even
Yeah.
in this country.
It's a picture from it completely different. There's
Yeah,
lots of pictures
exactly.
about 5G towers being dragged down, and then one of them was saying, "Well, whoa, that's actually in China, and that's not a 5G tower; it's a camera tower, and it's in Hong Kong. Sorry, that's they're protesting the Hong Kong thing and dragging it out, and then somebody else is saying this is something to do with 5G and Corona. It's got nothing to do with it either."
I suppose there's a lot of people out there that just get joy and entertainment out of the fact that they're duping other people or just getting people to argue with them.
And then lots of people share it because they don't know. They just hit the share button. It takes a second and go, share. That's interesting. They move on to the next. And then these things spread.
Exactly, and that's it. Nobody's checking the validity of the source, are they, of the information before they share it or repost it on social media? That's, I suppose, one of the downsides.
And that's another argument Facebook uses, isn't it, though? Because they say, right, a lot of false information is being spread around, or false news is being spread around on our platform, and it makes us look bad, so we have to censor it.
Yeah.
But again, that would be okay. I was going to say that would be okay if it was a newspaper. But in that case, they're censoring their own reporters, aren't they? They're basically censoring their employees. In Facebook terms, we're the reporters, we're the...
Exactly. It doesn't really quite work like a newspaper, does it? It doesn't. It's not the same.
No.
It's very different because Facebook shouldn't really have a particular stance on anything itself. It's really just a service in order for people to communicate through it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like trying to blame my phone company for a text I send. Do you know what I mean? They're not responsible. They just provide the text service. They don't actually they don't police what's written. Whereas a newspaper is responsible for what it puts.
Yeah,
is Facebook.
Course. Yeah, and the newspaper can have an agenda as well, can't it? It can be particularly biased to one political party, for example.
Oh yeah,
quite a few of them are.
The media censorship is ridiculous. The media, particularly in America, but I mean partly in Britain as well.
Well, just in the Western world. Yeah, the whole Western world.
I think in Britain, the BBC tries to be impartial.
I always trusted the BBC until the moment that they announced WTC 7 had collapsed 20 minutes before it had actually collapsed on September the 11th, 2001. Yeah. That kind of made me rethink and evaluate the BBC as just being another one of the ones that's controlled. 90% of the world's Western media is controlled by six companies at most, maybe even less than that now.
I think it's 6 major companies own like 90% of the world's media outlets.
Yes.
But if you think about the BBC, they get a lot of their news through Reuters, and Reuters is a controlled company. So even though you've got an impartial entity like the BBC, which is pretty unique around the world, it's still getting a lot of its information from an impartial source, if that makes sense. So, I mean, I don't think the BBC were necessarily to blame for that. They were victims of maybe Reuters dishing out information that is incorrect. So.
Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So when you keep diminishing the number of competitors in a market, and we keep going towards less and less single or a very few big players in a particular marketplace, you're very much opening up the system for corruption, bribery, etc. Because only a handful of men that control 90% of what we see on the television, on the news, or what we read in the newspapers. They can get around a table and they can decide to lie to us.
Well, it's a small number of people. You look at Rupert Murdoch, who is a strong Republican. So is it then shocking that the companies he owns are Republican and lean towards Republican Party ideals? Look at Fox News. They don't even try and hide the fact that they're biased. It's actually quite funny to watch Fox News a lot of the time because their stories are just like Democrats evil, Republicans are heroes. The end. Even when facts, don't worry about facts. How can we twist this fact to make it look like? But when news reports, when you almost have to flick between different channels and then try to piece together the information for yourself to try to figure out what is actually going on, that's not how news is supposed to work. They're not supposed to take a fact and look at the perspective they like.
No, but we're very much seeing the world going that way, aren't we? The universities across a lot of Europe and America are very left-wing socialist lines of thinking, and we're very much heading that way towards my opinion trumps your fact. And that's scary.
My opinion has validity. Well, not if it's wrong. Well, that's another point then. All right, on YouTube, on the Davey Icke video.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I don't believe it should be censored. I believe it should be debunked. It should be other people should make the argument.
Yep.
But do you have an argument for pulling that video if it is just factually wrong?
Well, I suppose no, because people are still entitled to believe, even if scientific fact is virtually proved incorrect. I mean, look at religion. It's been prevalent for our entire recorded known history, and it's still going today, even in the current modern era of science, when you can pretty much argue that we've pretty much proven that if there is a creator,
we've debunked God.
Yeah. If we've pretty much proven if there is a creator, it's probably outside the realms of our comprehension, our species comprehension, and therefore it's irrelevant. And he's not sat there in a cloud watching everything you do and making, and tweaking things, all the time. That he's probably, much grander plan than you're capable of even understanding.
Maybe God isn't debunked, but the Bible is.
Well, I think a lot of organised religions in decline, isn't it?
In the Western world, anyway.
In the Western world, I suppose primarily because of all the allegations of paedophilic behaviour within the Catholic Church. That's probably not helped them in the recent years. Now, I don't think people shouldn't be spiritual. I just think anybody that's trying to organise your beliefs is just trying to control you in some way, shape, or form. And that's pretty much what history proves if you if you study it.
I honestly think as education has improved, religion has, and this is a little bit off topic, but as education has improved, religious people going to churches has dropped. But you could also argue that church was a brilliant control mechanism.
Oh.
The powers that be thought of a better one, and then they thought of Amazon and digital TV and those other things.
I think it was the television, really, wasn't it? That's managed
TV, most definitely.
Get people.
Who can be bothered to go to church on a Sunday morning and actually get out of bed? I can have a lie on Sunday, and they're not scared of it anymore. So religion numbers dropped.
I think actually with the current crisis, and obviously churches being closed, you might wonder if after it you see a surge or a decrease in the congregation sizes going back. It's an interesting one. I'm not sure which.
Might do. People are scared, and when people get scared, they turn to God.
To God,
it's the only time in my life I actually considered myself, because I was brought up, I was sort of Church of England, but I always went to school at a Catholic school, so I've always considered myself sort of a bit of both, really. But I don't believe in God. I just don't. I'm an atheist, which is my personal choice. But in a time when my life was bad and I was going through some bad things, I did find myself going to church. It gave me some comfort, and but I think of God.
Yeah. So that's why people can believe what they want, I suppose, regardless regarding scientific fact, if it comforts them. But then they should also have the intelligence to understand that that's what they're doing, and that really it doesn't trump the scientific fact.
No, exactly. I've always thought with God, from my personal opinion, is that I don't believe in God, but I believe I'm a reasonably good person. And I always like Jesus' words to say, there's only 2 commandments: love thyself, love thy neighbour, and you're all right. And I'm sort of thinking, well, I'm all right. I don't think if I get up to God and he went, well, you didn't go to church once a week, so you're going to hell, I'd be like, well, fair enough then, because you're obviously a arrogant so-and-so that loves himself a bit too much. I don't think God would do that. I think God would be like, you were a good person, come on in. And if I turn myself at the pearly gates, I'll be like, I was wrong. Sorry, mate. I'm really sorry. I didn't believe you. let's have a chat about why I didn't believe you, and then I'll go in. It does bring up a valid point, though, isn't it? That when we're talking about censorship, if something's wrong, or in this current climate, more importantly, if spreading information that's wrong can actually cause death, in times of war, you have propaganda, you have all this sort of thing, and we have to really fight against propaganda. And part of that is you ban it because it costs lives. In our current situation, is it the same? Is spreading these things that are just not true, is it valid to censor them because it costs lives? Hard one.
It is a difficult question. I think they're struggling to come up with the answer to it, really. I get on the one side, you want to try and protect people from, like you said, online bullies and stuff like that, and but then if you do have a block function and they're still choosing to engage with that person, then receiving the abuse is almost their own choice if they're not willing to
change.
I
think when you're talking about young people under 18, I think that may be different.
Yeah, I think that is very
I think to protect our children.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody came up and started yelling abuse at my child, I wouldn't go, well, that's free speech. I would physically protect my child if necessary.
Yeah.
If someone yells abuse at me, I'm going to be like, all right, mate, thanks very much. See you. And, you're just going to walk away. I've always said you can call me whatever you like. You ain't going to bother me. You attack someone I love, that's different.
Well, yeah, and I think most people are like that generally, aren't they? Reasonable to a point, and yeah, I just ignore somebody that's trolling me online.
We'll do this channel. You kind of have to because we get a lot of crap.
Well, yeah,
we get a lot of crap. We get a lot of people yelling abuse at us for a video we've released and go, well, you've obviously not watched the video because we say that exact thing. You're having to go at us really aggressively for something we agree with you.
But I don't think you're ever going to stop that because I think some people get a rise out of just aggravating and annoying other people. So there's those people in society. So they've, unfortunately, I suppose the internet's just given them a medium with which they can do it anonymously. Maybe what they just need to do, I think, that will level out the internet to. But then again, this is I suppose it comes in with censorship as well as. Is if you can make anonymity on the internet removed, so you wherever you are, you're always you. So then, if you do make any of these horrible posts trying to, incite people to get angry or violent or that kind of stuff, then
they know who you are.
Then they know who you are, and the ramifications can come your way. If the odd person makes the odd wrong comment, fair enough. But if you send, I don't know, 1,000 messages to somebody.
Yeah. On a constant abuse or crossing that line where you attacking a child or doing something. But I was saying there's a difference between bad taste and abuse, and there is a difference. But how do you legalize that? How do you create a law for that, or how do you ban people for that? Because one person's things like irony as well and some sarcasm don't really project very well in a text. It's
no, but yeah. What they say, isn't it? Speech is 90% body language rather than, or might not be that high, but it's most of it's your body language, isn't it?
Yeah. There's a video at the moment about YouTube, and it generally made me really wound up because there's this woman and she's sat on a bench, and the police come over to her and say, "Look, you've been sat here 45 minutes now. Are you going home?" And she just goes, "No, I'm not going home. I'm going to watch the sunset." He goes, "Well, are you exercising?" "No, I'm mentally exercising." And then they give her the 30 quid ticket and say, "Look, we're going to fine you because you're supposed to go home. You're not supposed to be out here. You need to socially isolate. Go home." Then she refuses to give her details, so they arrest her. She released this video on YouTube and it's gone everywhere. And I put some comments on, and one of them was, "The police have got a truncheon. Sometimes it's okay to use it." Now, I'm thinking that as a joke. I'm not genuinely expecting them to go and drag her into the police. But then somebody like, "Oh, you're saying that physical violence against somebody just for sitting on a bench is okay, are you?" I'm like, "No, it was a joke."
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Jokes, sarcasm, they don't come across very well in written text, but sometimes.
Exactly. The cop has got pepper spray. I expect him to use that, really. But
you could argue if that woman was on the bench on her own that she was self-isolating until the two police officers came and accosted her. Technically,
that's yes, but it's not just. I have had that disagreement with them, and there are other people saying, "Oh, you're far more likely to catch this illness inside than you are outside, which is true, like in a shop and stuff like this.
Yeah.
My point was, though, that she was out there to make a YouTube video. She was waiting for the police, and then she had this whole spiel ready, and she ends a little argument by
you're right,
accusing
actually,
them and saying, "Because do you know what understand means?" And goes, "You haven't. Oh, sorry, you haven't asked me if I understood my rights." And the officer says, "Well, do you as well? If you understood means that you're stood under me. So no, I don't." And
no, she's going down that
ready to make that argument.
legalese.
Yeah. She was there to get
the meaning of the legal meaning of certain words in a court of law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things that we have to do at the moment. I have to go to Aldi and do a bit of shopping, and then you're at risk. The point is, we're supposed to be trying to eliminate all the things that we don't have to do. And she didn't have to be there. So the risk she presented to herself and others.
Yeah. Well, she got a £600 or was it £500 fine probably now then, the second fine or whatever, yeah, I imagine.
I don't know what it's going to be, but yeah, she refused to give the details is what they arrested her on. So refusing to identify herself, basically. So, but I'm there going, good. The police have got better things to do than deal with this nonsense. You know, it's like
yeah.
And for her little protest, that's really, I would say at the moment, not necessary. There are people actually dying. Protest your freedoms and stuff when people have actually stopped dying.
Yeah.
And if in this case she said actually that I don't care if I get corona, and like, that's fine, but if you do, you better not go to hospital. You better stay at home even if you die from it, if you're really going to protest it. But she's not going to do that, is she? She's going to get corona and go straight to a doctor. But
more than likely, yes. Yeah, so no, I don't condone her behaviour particularly.
It's a difficult one because I believe in freedom and I believe in people having freedom, but at the same time I also believe people's right to not die. You know, it's like, so you have to balance these things sometimes. So right, anyway, going back to censorship.
Mm-hmm.
If it is being, why do you think this is happening? Why do you think there's this censorship? We mentioned the media, and there's 6 big companies, and they have an agenda.
So why is there so much censorship in the world? Well, historically, if you look, the ruling elite class has always held the secretive knowledge and always kept it from the working class, or the slaves, perhaps. So yeah, it's one of those things. I don't think today is probably any different from any other point in our history, and I think that the ruling elites, the billionaires with all the money, I believe they've got a lot of secrets, probably. And they don't want the general public to know because it stops their billion-dollar money-making machines from keep piling more and more of the world's wealth into the hands of a very few select families. The number of billionaires has increased recently in the UK, I think. No, in the world, sorry. Is it the world? From 1,000 to 2,000 billionaires in the last...
Yeah. The very wealthy ones have lost money during this crisis. The wealthy, very wealthy, have all done very well out of the stock market crash. China's done very well out of the stock market crash as well, apparently. They're buying up loads of stock for cheap. But the very wealthy don't lose money when things like this happen.
No, it's almost like they had, preconceived notion of this occurring and that they could exit the markets quietly before...
Careful, you get us banned. You get the YouTube police knocking our door.
It wouldn't be the first time, would it? That no. People have done that.
You do have to wonder sometimes when you look at censorship and so there's a point. I say I did a psychology degree, and one of the things in that was social constructionism we've discussed before.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And all the way through, I'm learning about this social constructionism, and I'm just thinking it's control. And then when you learn it's one of the best funded areas of psychology, you have to go, oh, okay, it's control on a massive scale, because that's the point of social constructionism, is how do you construct society? How do you get a society that you want and get people to behave in ways that you want? You can fluff that up in nice terms and go, well, it's about, having a society that works and a society that works together, and blah, blah, blah. Or you can just say it's control.
Yeah, exactly. You give people the illusion of choice, so you give them a whole multitude of entertainment mediums to choose from to keep them in their little house that they spend their whole life away from trying to pay for. You distract people with choice.
Nice way to put it. I spend all of my time away from my home to pay for my home.
But I'm never in.
I spend more time with my work colleagues than I do with my family.
It's like I can't remember what a comedian says. Slavery was never abolished.
Yeah,
Steve Hughes, the comedian Steve Hughes. Slavery was never
yeah,
abolished. Somebody just sat down and did the math. I don't. We've got to feed them. We've got to clothe them. We've got to
yeah,
shelter them. We've got to give them medicine to keep them well.
yeah.
Or we could just give them an hourly wage and
And just
tell
sod
them to
off.
disappear at 5 o'clock and come back tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, you look after yourselves. Just make sure you're back here at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we still have this attitude as well, isn't it, that when you go to work, you do as you're told, do as you're told. And I'm like, after I'm thinking, well, no, because I'm not. You're paying me. I always get a thing. You actually do it with your job a lot, don't you? That you get loads of overtime, but they don't pay you. They put you in some sort of little lottery at the end of the week or something.
Yeah,
But
for some
you,
free
but
job
you
allowance
have
or something.
to do
But,
that. If you want
sorry.
to keep your job and you want to do what, you have to do that. And somebody's just come up with that as an idea, and there's expectation that, oh well, you just work over half an hour. And I'm like, no, the deal is, you pay me, I work as hard as I can for you. If you're not going to pay me, I'm going home. That should
Well,
be the deal, but that's not the expectation in a lot of jobs.
well, no, it isn't. I think we've become slave to the corporate machine very much in the last,
Yeah.
well, since World War II, really, I suppose, and the rise of the capitalist economies after World War II again. Very
But
much.
it's socially constructed, isn't it? That if you've got a good work ethic, then you're a good person. If you go to work, you never phone in sick, you're a good person. Well done, you.
And who
It's not sort of person
who drills that into you? The school system, the education system that
yeah,
does what? That takes your children away from their parents for most of their time whilst they're growing up and tells them how to fit into the nice little box that they want you in. Here you go.
it's
A
as
lot
well.
of the education systems in the Western world now just tune out people that are capable of regurgitating information that they've
Mm-hmm.
memorized. They're not necessarily critical thinkers, but governments don't really want nations of people that are capable of critical thinking and realise how many different systems are in place that have been screwing them over for decades.
No, they just want a system of people that do as they're told, pay taxes, do all these things, and don't ask too many
Yeah,
questions.
just
Because
clever
too
enough
many
to
questions, and a
clever enough
lot
to
of how you
do the
think about
paperwork,
these
run the
things.
machines, but not ask too many questions.
If you think about us going to war with another nation for whatever reason, if you really think about it, it's stupid.
Hmm.
But we do it all the time. We don't ask too many questions. Why are we in Afghanistan right now?
If you
Don't
just
ask
look,
too many questions because
if
you won't
you
like the answers.
as soon as you investigate though and you look into it and you realise that how big the military industrial complex is, how much it contributes to America's GDP,
When you
how
want
much
to do
how much it's got the United Kingdom, NATO, and Europe in its back pocket as well.
Well, what we're saying as well is about the censorship thing is that the media's got an agenda, right? Fine,
Always.
they're owned by people that've got an agenda.
Mhm.
Facebook, though, we even said Facebook and YouTube shouldn't have an agenda. Their only real excuse for censorship is that it makes us look bad. But I'm saying, well, there are other ways of doing that, but you can. But it's not fair to decide what makes them look bad in a way. It's like, well, what video is right and what video is wrong? It's not right that they decide that. Really, it's when they're a social networking platform. That's their freedom is supposed to really be the point of Facebook. So
Look at the censorship in China. I think that's what we've really got to be worried about. If
yeah,
the governments of the world go more towards the China high tech totalitarian society where they're basically monitoring everything everybody does everywhere all of the time with camera systems and everybody's tracked. And now with the recent crisis, there's software being developed to help people to help governments track their populations of who's infected and who's not, or who's immune. So we're all going to be being fully tracked all of the time, and that information fed into the GCHQs or the NSA
yeah,
style information centers, and that's pretty much probably going to start occurring in all countries now following this as
yeah.
well.
The standard, it won't go away. That
Well,
that's not
certainly
go away.
certainly the Western countries first
Yeah.
of all, and then the rest of the
It's
world
due to be
following.
another virus. Even if Corona sort of just becomes normal and we just have a Corona season like we have a flu season, which we will. I mean, we have very high numbers of deaths from flu, but we're used to it, so we don't panic. Corona will go the same way. But
They're not far away
well,
from
about the
being
next virus and the
yeah.
next. We can't have this happen again. We can't have this shut down again. So we need tracking systems. We need to take away a little bit of your freedom to save lives, and that's always the excuse, isn't it?
Yes, that is always the excuse. Yes. You need to make them. This is the way that the governments tend to operate. They tend to operate, and they make you fear and panic in order for you to willingly give away your freedoms for a false pretense of security.
And that's the agenda. And we talk about why they do it. Maybe that's it. And we know that governments at the moment are terrified of the internet, or were terrified of the internet because it was free. It's not anymore.
And how is it government politicians have put it? Never fail to take advantage of a good crisis. They would say.
Yeah.
I
don't believe that. I know a lot of people believe the current crisis is man-made or is fake or is all this stuff. I personally don't. I just think
I don't believe it's fake.
I think our government's very good at taking advantage when things happen.
No.
Oh, something's gone wrong. Brilliant. How do we take advantage of this? I don't like I think I said in the last video. It's not all of them, but there's a room somewhere with a couple of probably quite old fellas going, right, now, that thing that we're aiming towards, how can we take those little baby steps towards it? How can we use this crisis to get at that a little bit closer? The internet really is a problem. It won't be after this because they'll tighten up even more and censorship will become normal. And
well, I think you'll see if they try to censor the internet, like they do in China, in a lot of the Western world, I think you will see the rise of the revolution coming, to be honest, because once people can no longer use the internet to chat freely, when they know that the mainstream media is so biased and corrupt, and controlled by so few people, that a lot of people, the young generations of today, are now getting all their news online. And then if you stop those people from being able to produce their own programs where they do their own research, their own news reports, etc., and the people are forced to only get their news back from the corrupt mainstream that I think a lot of the younger generation already are fully aware of, thanks to the internet, then I think that will lead it down a path to
when our current generation becomes of my worry is that at the moment, at least, 99% of people don't care. They want to watch the news. Most of them don't watch the news. They'll read headlines and then make an opinion. And as long as they've got their 20 different coffees, Amazon delivers the next day, and they can earn a decent living, they don't care. They just don't care enough.
No, you're right. Yeah. Again, it goes down to people being, I suppose, people's time, because of the fact that they have to work to earn a salary. That takes away a lot of their available hours. Then the rest of theirs is normally family and children and dealing with all of that, and then sleeping. So I suppose times are people don't have the time to.
I'm really angry about this.
A lot of these things.
Really be bothered to do anything about it.
They're very focused in on their own lives, and as long as their life isn't affected by something, obviously, then ignorance is bliss.
That's the difference, isn't it? As long as their life isn't influenced, obviously. Yeah. They can lose freedoms, but half the time they're not that bothered as long as their day to day can keep going on. And
I'd liken it to heating a frog up in a frying pan. If you put a frog into hot water, in a pan, it will jump straight out. But if you put the frog into cold water in the pan and then slowly heat the water up, it doesn't realise that the temperature is slowly increasing, and it will burn to death. It'll boil to death in the pan of water. That's almost like them slowly taking away your freedoms for more for this idea of a bit more security, and slowly it'll be more and more and more, and then eventually it's all gone.
And that's what our leaders are quite good at. They realise they can't do it too quickly or there'll be riots, and we'll reject it. But if they do it slowly, human psychology will allow it because we get used to it.
You probably think there'll be an argument for world government or after this as well, because they'll be arguing how we're going to control all of the different countries and their different approaches to the current crisis, and whether some people have had it ripped through the entire population and others have managed to contain it. Then how are you going to allow all that travel globally? You're going to have some kind of organisation probably controlling which people move where. and that's that's another step towards global governance.
Quite possibly, which is something we're going to be talking about in our next several episodes. New world order, world governments, a plan to move our society into an area of control slowly. One thing on censorship, though, we'll make a point on before we wrap up. A lot of the conspiracy theories have been going out there about 5G and Corona and all this sort of thing that I don't agree with. But one of the things people were talking about was the World Health Organization leader. I don't know what he is. Is he a president or something?
I assume he's the director, isn't he?
Yeah.
Forget his name. Ethiopian guy. Yeah.
Ethiopian. Nobody was talking about him on the media, but he's been over the internet for 2 or 3 weeks. His history is shady, to say the least. He had an Ethiopian history in Ethiopia of covering up malaria outbreaks and this sort of thing. A lot of the videos with David Icke video, he talks about this guy. He shouts him out. He says this guy is not a good guy and he should not be in charge of the World Health Organization.
Indeed, he does say
corrupt.
That, and I have looked into that as well.
Yeah, and a lot of those videos were banned. David Icke's video, and he's talking about this, is banned. And then we found out, and then suddenly the actual mass media found out it's true. And then only yesterday, Sky News reported everything that's been being reported on through internet for weeks. They finally got around to going, oh God, who's actually in charge of this? This guy is not a guy we want in charge. His history is awful. How the hell did he become in charge of the World Health Organization? And he's leading us through this crisis. Sometimes you throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think that's what I'm trying to say, when you start censoring things. So, yes, all right, there's stuff about 5G I don't agree with, I don't believe. I think there's a lot of science to argue that likely what they're talking about is nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But then they talk something about the leader, this guy, but that video got censored. So something really important that we actually do need to talk about got censored because of something else they didn't like, and that's wrong. In our next video, though, we're going to talk about 5G and some of the things. So let's see how long I'm allowed to share that video for.
Probably not too long, no.
Yeah. So for a week, I'm not allowed on Facebook. I still don't know why, but so we're being censored. So thanks very much for that, and we'll see you when I'm laid back on.
Okay. See you all next week.
Thank you very much.